If you are just tuning in, Rishi Sunak has formally resigned outside the number 10 door at Downing Street. He has taken his car to the Buckingham Palace, where the King has been waiting to receive his resignation. And of course, then we will see Keir Starmer arriving at Buckingham Palace when he will be formally asked by King Charles to form his next government. He'll then arrive in 10 Downing Street and, of course, expected to make a speech outside. It looks like the weather might be okay. Hopefully he, unlike other people, might actually have an umbrella with him. Still with me, I'd like to say, former Labour advisor Matthew Laza, who's a very, very chuffed person, looking very, very pleased with himself. We spoke to Lord Peter Mandelson a little bit earlier, very, very pleased, of course, regarded as the architect of Labour's victory in '97. But there is no doubt at all that this is more of a vote against the Conservatives or the Tory voters not coming out to vote than it is a big endorsement of what Labour have to say and have on offer. That's going to create problems for a new leader of the government and of the country with, well, I mean, I think it's got 412 Labour MPs, huge number of MPs. Some of them are MPs that perhaps he would agree with a lot of their politics. Still a lot of Corbynistas, you know, the Diane Abbots and others. Yeah,
they've been diluted a bit because he kept such tight control of the selection in the new people. They're all kind of Starmerites or moderates, pretty much to a person. Of the new people coming in, but yeah, you've still got
they
the
are now
exactly, and that's the key. It could be a big problem, but it could be a big opportunity because we have seen this. We always think that the government on their first, when a government comes in, that's their high watermark and it's downhill all the way. Of course, David Cameron, 2010 to 2015, gained votes. Yeah. So that will be absolutely in their minds as the government begins. Is how can we get a higher percentage share in 5 years' time?
Well, indeed. Let's have a little listen to a clip actually of what Keir Starmer had to say overnight. He was speaking to a crowd of supporters at the Tate Modern Art Gallery. Couldn't be more New Labour than that, could you really? In the early hours of the morning, we are expecting to speak outside number 10 as well very, very soon. But let's have a little listen and a watch of what he had to say to see, well, what a taste we're going to get of what we're going to hear later this morning.
We did it! 4.5 years of work changing the party. This is what it is for. A changed Labour Party, ready to serve our country, ready to restore Britain to the service of working people. The sunlight of hope, pale at first, but getting stronger through the day, shining once again on a country with the opportunity after 14 years to get its future back.
The sunlight of hope. I mean, he was trying to go with the whole sort of a new dawn. Yeah. Has, you know, is broken, has it not? Lines of Tony Blair back in '97. But it's not a new dawn, is it? Labour has won, undoubtedly, a landslide majority. A massive bloodbath for the Conservatives, no doubt at all. But entering government on just under 34% of the vote share, but they got, you know, 2/3 of the seats on 1/3 of the vote. But it's the lowest of any governing party since 1923. Barely any more votes in 2019. I think a smaller share of the vote than Jeremy Corbyn got in 2019. Now, that's a bit more efficient, you know, not piling Labour votes up in some inner city seats, as Labour has done over the years, getting all these votes but not actually turning them into extra seats. But, you know, is this a new dawn? Is this a vote for hope? Or is this just a lot of people saying, we're done and dusted with the Tories. You've had 14 years. The country's in a mess. Nothing works. We're tired of them. It's time to give someone else a change. There's a Sun front page yesterday. You know, it's time for a new manager. It's not an endorsement of Labour. It's not an endorsement of Keir Starmer. It's not an endorsement of your manifesto. It's the other lot of rubbish will give you a go.
Yeah, look, it clearly isn't a new dawn in the sense that Tony Blair captured a kind of generational change in 1997. You know, remember, you couldn't find anybody who'd admitted to voting to anything other than Labour in the aftermath of 1997.
Even though his vote was smaller than John Major's only 5 years
Absolutely, yeah,
earlier.
I know, which I think was the most single votes anybody got in a UK general election, John Major in '92. First election I knocked on doors in. But, yeah, so look, Labour's going to be acutely aware it doesn't have that kind of momentum behind them, that it's got, that, you know, Keir hasn't set the Heather alight anywhere, apart from in Scotland, actually. Maybe you set the heather alight, but not, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. So, I mean, one of the things they could have done last night was offer the Lib Dems a coalition. Then you would have got to 46%. Because
why would you with 412
no, because
MPs
of the share of the vote. I mean, you could have done something radical. So I think watch this space about how they'd have a relationship with the Lib Dems to kind of give that sort of progressive, the progressive 50% of Britain a voice.
Well, and again, Labour have worked with the Lib Dems and the SNP.
Remember Blair? Blair did a constitutional committee with the Lib Dems after '97. Brought Paddy Ashdown into this cabinet committee. Yeah. You might see something like that with the Lib Dems. Just a thought.
Well, there's bringing them over. I'm not sure there's much I've lost with Ed Davey there. I mean, let's talk about the Lib Dems actually. I want to come to Scotland, but we're going to get to your calls as well in just a couple of moments. But the Lib Dems, I mean, they did look incredibly well. They were on, single digit numbers. They are on the latest that I've got 71 seats.
It's just
that's a massive increase. They've been, some of the big victors of this. However, it is interesting again. They've not got, they've not got. I think they've got a lower share of the vote than the Reform Party.
Yeah, no, they've definitely got a lower share of the vote than the Reform Party, and they've got
12.2% compared to Reform's 14.3%.
Absolutely. I mean, oddly, for the first time, it's almost proportional. The Lib Dems' number of seats is almost proportional. Maybe the Lib Dems will not be in favour of PR, as they've managed to effectively do it under this system.
But this is always the case, because we know something that Ben Habib of Reform UK was saying a little bit earlier when we spoke to him, that talking about the voting system. The point is that any party that can get elected or do well under first past the post is never going to support voting reform.
Absolutely. And
the voters don't want to.
Everybody thinks about Ed Davey and his appearances in.
Try not to think.
Yes,
about
exactly. Don't think about him in a wetsuit, because that really will distract us. But what you saw is that ruthless targeting of a very specific demographic. And I think one of the interesting things about this election is that you've basically seen social tribes. You've got Reform's got a very clear demographic. The Lib Dems in the posh bits of the home counties in the southeast, and some of their old heartlands as well. And Labour has done. Labour taking Suffolk Coastal off Theresa Coffey with the lovely Aldborough and and Snape Maltings and all of that in it. You've got some of the poshest places ever to have a Labour MP this time around. But the Tories clung on in what you sort of more sort of lower middle territory, as the sociologists call it. So I think social tribes, it can be fascinating.
That's going to be something interesting to watch. Look, let's go to our calls, because I've been asking your reaction to the vote. Keir Starmer winning a landslide victory after the Tory vote collapse. It's very much a Tory vote collapsing story rather than a massive big vote for Keir Starmer. I want to know what your reaction is. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. You can send a WhatsApp to the same number. Text on 87222. Tweet us on X at TalkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. Let's go to some of the messages first. Jeffrey says 4 years of socialism, wokeness, more immigration and even more division. Jeffrey, I think you'll find you've not read the memo from Keir Starmer. It's the end to chaos. Did you not get that memo? Kelly says it's all fun and games until they do what they've always wanted to do, tax the working man to death and support those who won't. Starmer will smile for a short time. People will get annoyed with his policies. I've got to be honest, I think people are going to get annoyed with his speeches. He's not an easy listen, is he, Matthew?
It's not an easy listen. As somebody who nearly went to be a speechwriter, I have a slight...
That'd be bad for business in the future, wouldn't it? And Nathan says, I no longer care. What will happen will happen. If you think voting will change anything, you're deluded. I disagree with you, Nathan, on that. He says it's just swapping like for like. Next time it'll be Conservative, then Labour, then Conservative. Jay says, happy days. Tory austerity and corruption is over. Let's get the country back to where it was pre-2013. And Peter says, unsurprising, they're deeply concerned as to how Labour will run things. Can only hope the Tories get their act together for next time, or better yet, Reform pushes to new heights. Well, let's go to the phone lines now. Vernon has called in on 0344 499 1000, as you can at any time. He's in Staffordshire. Good morning to you, Vernon.
Hi, Julia.
Hello.
It's a very bad morning, Julia, for politics. Very bad morning for democracy.
Why?
30+% is hardly a landslide. I don't mind a change in government. I am a Tory. They've been abysmal. They deserve to be wiped out.
So it was. So that's a good day for democracy then, isn't it?
It isn't, Julia. If you look at it, we now have sectarian politics. We have, in certain areas, we have parties now that have been set up that are on a political mission, i.e. Palestine. I think that is shocking. A landslide is not 30+%.
No, but it's a landslide in terms of the number of seats. And look, we know, we know in our first past the vote system, it matters. It's what the result is in every constituency. That's the reality.
It is the reality, Julie. And the other reality is really quite simple: is that Labour have got into government by not answering a single question. I think it's shocking. I really do. Ultimately, you win things in life. Labour have got in on by default. The Tories are dreadful, so we'll give them a kicking, and now we'll put Labour into power.
That certainly seems to be the feel. What did you make, just finally, you say you're a Conservative voter. What do you make of what Rishi Sunak had to see when he announced that his resignation outside number 10? He said, "I'm sorry, I've given this job my all. I have heard your anger, your disappointment. I accept responsibility for this loss."
Well, the long and short, it's not his responsibility. Let's be clear about it. You know, Rishi is probably one of the most decent human beings you'll ever meet.
Yeah, I agree with you.
He just didn't read the room, Julia. Some people hit. I think the reason why Boris was so popular, because like the normal human male, he had his faults. He had
a lot of them, though. He had about a whole city's worth. So that's the. It's interesting if you look at when the polls started collapsing for the Conservatives. Bearing in mind, people were talking about 2 terms for Boris Johnson. It was the Partygate affair. There was so much anger. I mean, I was at the head of that. I'm still furious about that. Not about someone having cake. I'm talking about someone knowing perfectly well they were locking us down, ruining our lives, ruining our economy, knowing full well it wasn't necessary because that's why they weren't locking down themselves. But that was when the polling collapsed for the Tory party, and then of course even more when Liz Truss was in office as well. But do you think, is there another leader who could have turned it around? Are there policies Rishi Sunak could have pursued that would have turned it around? If he'd gone more to the left, for want of a better phrase, or to the right, would that have made a difference?
2 things to say to you. Mr. Lockdown is now Prime Minister of this country. Be very fearful, because if Keir Starmer was PM during lockdown, we'd still be locked down. If anybody wants to see, and have a look in Wales, what the carnage that's gone on down there. But the long and the short of it is, it wouldn't matter if you were giving gold bars as a Tory MP. You were going to lose. That's just it. You were going to lose. Labour were in government. Now we have 200,000 people awaiting for a decision concerning citizenship of this country. They will get that immediately. Open doors. It'll be carnage, Julia.
Okay, you're not hopeful, Vernon. I so appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed for that. Matthew Laza, who's a former Labour advisor, was listening to all that. You were just shaking your head then.
Absolutely. There's no way that Labour will give anybody a free card. One of the things the Tories were actually doing is to try and keep the numbers, the number of people who are waiting for a decision down, is they were just quietly waving people, the rubber stamping people through to keep that number down. So we wanted to process people quicker, and that doesn't mean necessarily more people.
When you think about the biggest issues sort of facing this country, look, it's the economy, stupid. At the end of the day, if people are feeling flush with the cash, they don't get angry at the government. People are not flush with the cash, not just with lockdown. You have the austerity years, you have lockdown, with the energy crisis, inflation going sky high, even though it's now back down to 2 percentage points, and no one thinks it was anything the government did that did that. It was the Bank of England's decisions on interest rates. In fact, it was just what happened with energy prices. It's the world. It was out of the control of the government when it went up, and it was out of control when it went down. But at the end of the day, people are still poorer. I mean, most people have not seen their standard of living improve, since 2008, 2009. Now, small thing happened. I can't remember now. Was there anything that happened at the end of the Labour government that made an impact?
The global financial crash.
The global financial crash.
Emphasis on global.
Very, very hard. Now, here's the thing. People, that's a massive issue, and the economy and growth, huge issues. I've yet to hear anything from Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves, who's about to be Chancellor, about how they're actually going to deliver growth. I'm not even convinced that any government can deliver growth other than by just backing off and leaving the wealth creators to get on with it. Got the NHS crisis, people waiting. They've not even, their best promise on that is that 40,000 extra operations a year, or a drop in the ocean of the number that are needed. Not even promising to even more than half the waiting list by the end of 2029. That doesn't seem like we've got much hope for the NHS. Immigration, legal immigration, they're going to get that down, they say, significantly, I think was the word. Yeah. Does anyone believe that, given the Tories we think might have actually thought it but still didn't do it? And then, of course, illegal migration, the boats, again, setting up a task force which already exists, talking to Macron, they've already done that. I can't see, on the 3 really big issues for voters in this country, whether they voted Tory, didn't bother voting at all, voted Reform UK or voted Labour, I simply cannot see at all what Labour are going to do to bring about this this change they talk about so much?
So I think I'm just unpacking there. On the NHS, I'm very glad that Wes Streeting survived. He had a
very close run,
campaigning independent,
very
close run thing, because I think Wes will give the NHS the radical treatment that it needs, which frankly Labour governments can do more than Tory ones because they've got the political capital on the NHS.
Yeah, he won. He won Ilford North by just 528 votes.
Absolutely, and it'd be the first gay couple in Parliament, because his partner, Josh McAllister, his partner Joe Dancy, got elected in Middlesbrough South, so they'll be the first. They're not married yet, but you know, could be first.
I'm looking for my invitation to the wedding. Exactly. West. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm hoping to at least get the evening. It'll be the great hierarchy in Labour.
So but coming back to the serious business.
Yes.
NHS.
Yes, so I think we need the radical change on the NHS. On immigration, I think one of the important things in the next 24 hours is who is appointed immigration minister. Will they appoint somebody? We've got two at the moment in the Tory cabinet. They sort of half sit in the cabinet, but they're not actually in charge of it. Will Labour split the Home Office up, create an immigration ministry?
Who would want that job?
Well, Stephen Kinnock is the immigration. Neil Kinnock, former Labour leader's son, is the immigration spokesperson at the moment. Will he be kind of carved out to a separate department within the thing, so it's seen as a priority? Because Labour will be conscious about those reform voters, especially in its heartlands.
Indeed. Well, you say it again. You talk about the NHS, needs reform. How is that going to... I mean, realistically, how is that going to deliver any extra operations, any extra doctor's appointments?
Well, first of all, it's going to use the private sector, which actually the Tories haven't been using extraordinarily.
Yeah,
and the private sector, obviously, you can't pull a rabbit out of a hat in terms of capacity. The private sector said there is some capacity. They will use it on day one. And I see who's pointed to run the NHS England, not the minister, but the chairman of NHS England, the chair of NHS England, could well be like Jackie Smith or Alan Milburn.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. In terms of growth in the economy, I've been saying for a very long time...
Get Britain building.
Getting Britain building.
Which is one of the key things that Liz Truss and all the, the Adam Smith Institute agreeing with Rachel Reeves. Get Britain building.
Here's the thing on the planning. All in favour of planning reform to get planning through. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because lots of people say, yeah, we want to build more houses, but not here.
And now you've got Labour MPs in pretty places.
What now? But this is the key thing.
That'll be an issue. Sorry.
This is going to be a massive issue. It's all very well. We're going to ride... No one's using that phrase in the Labour Party. Going to ride roughshod over these local objections, local people and local MPs. And, well, that's what the Tories plan to do. And, well, they backtracked on that because so many Tory MPs but not in my Tory shire. Right. Labour were planning to do that. That was fine when they thought they were still upsetting Tory voters and Tory MPs.
Totally.
Now it looks, given that 412 number of seats, they're going to be upsetting their own MPs and their own new voters, some on not particularly big majorities. Will they have the guts to go ahead? And also, will they be able to go ahead, given their commitment to net zero, the legal challenges we will see under the absurd law that requires commitments to net zero? We've already seen challenges in the High Court about pretty much every major development going, whether it's runways, whether it's nuclear power stations, you name it. Realistically, under net zero and the plans that Labour have, you can't build anything new anyway.
Yeah, no, I think I was just bubbling over to think about the new Labour MPs for parts of the country with a lot of green fields, a lot of potential NIMBYs in them. One of the results you just had this morning, a Labour guy just won Poole by 18 votes. If you've got a majority of 18 votes in a leafy constituency, it's clearly you're not going to be in favour of building. So that's going to be a big challenge. The clash, as you say, between let's build and let's keep our seats.
OK, Matthew Laza, thank you very much. Rishi Sunak has just left Buckingham Palace, where he has tendered his resignation to King Charles. We will be seeing Keir Starmer arriving very, very soon. He will meet with the King at Buckingham Palace before, of course, he goes to number 10 Downing Street and speaks outside there. I suppose he'll be hoping that the heavens are as kind as they were to Rishi Sunak today, if not 6 weeks ago, when he announced the snap election, and that he won't be rained on, at the very least, that one of his aides has bothered to get an umbrella for him. We shall see, and we'll see whether or not he has to face the barracking from the likes of Steve Bray and others outside number 10's gates. Something I really think we need to just stop from happening. I don't care who it is speaking. If they're the Prime Minister of this country, they're incoming or outgoing, I'd like to be able to hear what they have to say without having to hear someone deciding to sort of interrupt our democratic process.